Scary. I'm looking at this one.
Yeah, those are all the resources that
Okay.
I'll forward to you right now. Okay.
Okay.
But that's the one that.
So where should the color, where should the background color be left? What else?
I'll try on there.
You apply the body, you want it white, you would want it
This master.
in here.
That's
So
the
if
one
you
that
don't,
you would think you're good
yes,
with, right?
so apply to.
I guess from today.
Almost works.
Oh, yeah, then go ahead and swap your wires from there. Don't.
I was gonna call you.
Make sure we know the rest of the
So
answers.
that-
Next time, we got you tomorrow. We're on
Okay.
the
Hey, Jonathan. Hey, quick question for you.
So you will get me.
No, I don't need.
You're gonna be able to reference classes? Yeah.
Can I figure out why it's not going on?
Do you want to see what?
Yeah, watch some of the did a bunch of there.
Is that all? Did you try turning that up?
Yeah, I tried turning it on. Maybe I turned it on.
Might be off, because I don't think. Oh, yeah. There we go.
We have basically resources off.
Oh,
They were like, it's too expensive, get stuff done, both of you guys do.
okay, yeah, we'll remind each other.
Yeah.
So that's gonna take up some time, so we got like, I don't know, like a full minute maybe.
Okay.
See how that goes.
Yeah, we got like a couple more minutes till class.
Yeah.
We're in 6:30, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
There's a survey, some of that's no rush. Okay, yeah, as long as it's on that.
Hey, could we dim the lights a little bit too?
Midnight, probably.
Like about halfway.
Yeah.
Just good.
You're welcome.
And then just switch it to your computer. And the way that we're trying to complete is added link art visit order.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, right?
Yeah, I think that's about, maybe a little more.
Can we do one more?
It's up to them. How do you guys like it? Do you want it darker or lighter?
I think that's good.
I don't want anyone on the sleeve.
This is good. The lights are too harsh.
Yeah.
So real quick, guys, before we got into starting classes, who read my email that I sent out yesterday?
So we have
Too low.
Oh, there's the week 2 one about past questions, you can support one, and the one about
You can see the billing.
billing. Thank you. So the one for week 2, get used to that, God is gonna let that out on a weekly basis. It's gonna have videos, it's gonna have some basic quotes, some mobile quotes. So just be on the lookout for that.
We'll take a look at that after class.
And then if you guys have any questions,
Also, if you can help
take
me
it or just like me.
double check.
But how you guys feel going into week 2?
Thank you, appreciate it.
Alright. So now you're going to, I mean, if you guys need anything, remember we have tutors that are really here to support you guys. Don't be embarrassed, don't be shy. Even if you know it, I always recommend a tutor. You're paying for it. There's great resources, so if you need additional support, just let me know, and then I'll get one assigned to you like right away. Okay? You guys have any questions for me before you have things at 30?
TAs is an hour before,
30 minutes.
30 more.
Yeah.
And then
30 minutes before,
after.
30 minutes after, yeah.
And should we make an appointment with them or?
No, they're always going to be here working. Someone else is starting probably next week, so we'll always have 2 TAs and 3 TAs in the Saturday class. If you want to make time with them, just let me know and I can schedule it for them. Okay.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Slack. I'm available for you guys too. Some resources.
I think somebody work on Saturday. The schedule is open every day. Oh, yeah. We have different hours. Yeah, they turn out and they take their lunch out. Yeah. So I haven't been there. I would love to hear feedback on that. Share with the class. All right.
Okay, I think we're gonna get started. You're gonna. Okay, so how's everyone doing? Good? Everyone good? Awesome. I hope you're all doing good. Give yourselves a hand. You guys had an amazing week. You got really, really far. I'm really, really proud of you. I can definitely see. I'm wondering if you guys can see it. Like, where were you? Can we see a show of hands? Where were you guys when you first came in here? About where were you with CSS? Your understanding of CSS, like a 2, a 0, a couple 2s, couple 0s. How do you guys feel now? It seems like a lot of you should be at like a 3 or a 4, or at least you're doing better. What about Git? How much did you guys know about Git when you came in here? Like 0, right? How do you guys feel now about Git? Pretty good, right? You're at like a 4 or 5. This is 1 week. Just 1 week of work, guys. So I'm excited to see where you guys will be in 5 months, 6 months from now. I mean, I find this progress really incredible. I didn't learn that fast when I was first starting out. That's definitely true. So, yeah, we're going to ask it again. How's it going? After week 1 of bootcamp, like, are you holding up? Any questions? Does anybody feel like they're about to die, about to give up?
I mean, is it okay for your brain to be mushy?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That means that it's working. Not only is it okay for your brain to be mushy, but that means that it's working. That's all a part of the process. I think I mentioned that last week. You guys are going to feel like a little funny. You're absorbing a lot of information. This is boot camp. You guys are doing push-ups with your brains, mental calisthenics, as I said before, right? So it's natural. It's all a part of the process. And be sure you guys are taking time for self-care, right? Like I said, go buy yourself an ice cream cone, maybe give yourself a treat, make sure you're getting the proper rest, like all that stuff, because we are going to be working hard in here, and it's important to take care of yourselves. And I'm seriously mind blown by how well you guys are doing. I really am. So some of the things you guys are doing incredibly well at, you're all absorbing an enormous volume of information. You've just absorbed a whole lot of stuff since last week. You guys are asking great questions. The questions you all are asking are really important. You've touched on some pretty wide-ranging topics, so that's great. Keep it up with asking the questions. You're noticing details. You're helping each other out, which I think is great because we're all a team here, and we all need to help each other out. So great job with that. And most importantly, you guys are figuring things out on your own. I see you guys going to Google. You figure things out. You got things taken care of. So like, give yourselves another round of applause. You guys are doing really, really amazing work here. Okay, so a few admin items before we get started. Remember, homework 1 is going to be due this Thursday. We kind of messed up. Josh gave me some different instructions than from what Juan is doing. From now on, all of our homeworks are going to be due on Monday. You guys will have until Thursday's class to hand in this homework, just since that's what we initially told you.
And
Okay.
homework gets posted.
Homework will get posted tonight, every Tuesday night.
Okay.
And it will be due next Monday. Okay? Makes sense? Is that good with you guys? Do you guys think you'll have enough time for that? Because I want to make sure it works for you, but I also want to make sure we stay on track. Yes.
For this current homework assignment we have, wasn't it this Saturday? Well, I mean, I know you said,
No. It's not due Saturday. So, okay. Yeah, all right. So I said Saturday, Thursday. You can have till Saturday, take till Saturday since we kind of got our signals crossed. But, like, I would recommend you get it done sooner than that. I would recommend trying to get it done today if you want to stay on track. Because it's one thing to get a grade in this course, but you guys are really all here for yourselves, right? So try to stay on top of it. Try to stay proactive about getting the work done. And if you guys, I understand you guys have jobs outside of this. You have lives outside of this. So if you're not going to get it done, come to me or one of the TAs or Siobhan. Let us know, and we're happy to work something out for you guys if you need more time, okay? And submit whatever you have. That's the other important point I wanted to make. Submit whatever you have when you're doing homework, or let us know that you didn't have time to get it done, but don't just not do it and get a 0. Okay, so remember we have our TAs and I will be available to help you 45 minutes before class and 30 minutes after. Keep reviewing the in-class material, exercises, slides, everything that we hand out to you. Rewatch the videos of class. I know we haven't had the videos of me talking up until now, but we'll have this one tonight, and going forward, we'll have all the videos for you guys as well. Okay, so a little bit of recapping. Here's what we've learned so far. A lot of stuff, right? Like, how did you guys all feel with this stuff when you came in here? Not so good. Now you should be pretty familiar with most of it, but let's talk about it a little bit in case anyone has any questions. Out of all of these, is anything popping out at anyone? Like, oh gosh, I don't understand HTML syntax. I don't understand floats.
The terminal get bashed has me.
Okay, the terminal.
I have a plan of action for that.
Okay, good. So what is it like you're having trouble with? Is it remembering the commands? Is it having?
It's the commands, and then I look it up, and then when I do it on my math book, and I understand terminals specific to math, but when I look at the commands, it's just not getting from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Whereas I can do almost everything else. I can look it up. I can go through pre-work. I can figure it out myself. It's just terminal. I really need to wrap my brain around it. And I have a plan, and I plan to spend time with Jonathan.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, first of all, Jackie, because I'm sure you're not the only person, for every one of you guys that speaks up and says, hey, I'm having a problem with these things. I'm sure there's at least 2 or 3 others of you that are having the same problem. So thanks for sharing that, and get with me or Jonathan after class, and we can help get you sorted out. Snaps for Jackie. Okay. Anyone else? Any one of these things? Yes, sir.
Yeah, both floating and positioning.
Okay, so floating and positioning. So we'll get a chance to go over that more. They can be kind of confusing topics to learn. So we'll get to go over that more. You guys will get to practice with it. Anything specifically with float and position that kind of get you?
It might be me when I was messing with the z-index to try and match the image you guys sent for the first homework. You have, I think, the sections front of the article, I think.
Okay, and did you set position to absolute?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
And
so
I did though a couple of times. It would just cover the whole area.
yes. So you have to set the width and height explicitly in order for it to work. And I'll get with you like on the break or after class, and we can look at that. But thanks for bringing that up, though. Snaps. And we'll definitely get you sorted out with that. I mean, anyone else? What else is hardest for you guys? What are you guys enjoying? Anybody else like to share?
It's fun creating it and using the colors and floating and doing just the function of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun doing it, and it's a great feeling when you finally get it to work, when you struggle with something and you can't figure it out, and you say, oh my God, what is this craziness? And then you finally get it to work. It's a really great feeling. So we're going to cover all of these things in depth more. This program really focuses on repetition, which is a great way to learn, because you'll learn something and then we'll go back over it and return to it, and that way you guys will get to learn these things. So if you're not quite at the place where you'd like to be with these things yet, we're going to keep going with it, and please just try to stay with us, trust the process, and you guys will all be totally stellar full stack developers by the time we finish this, I promise. Okay, so we talked about this in our first class. I don't know how many of you remember because we went over a lot of stuff, but this is the stack that we'll be using to create our apps. It's MERN stack, Mongo, Express, React, Node. And I have to say that's one of the things that I really like about this program is the technology stack that we're using. Some other boot camps focus on products like Angular, which I find is inferior to React. Other coding boot camps will teach students PHP instead of Node. Databases, more traditional databases instead of Mongo. Yes, Sam.
There's a meat stack.
A meat stack. Well, there's a meme stack. I think they got this word MERN from the meme stack, which is Mongo Express Angular Node. But they have all kinds of crazy stacks with crazy names for them. People try all types of different things. There's been widespread adoption of React recently as people start to have more and more problems with Angular. Angular has had problems sort of scaling, and with the updates with Angular 4, everything completely changed. They even skipped Angular version 3 completely because there were so many things that got kind of messed up. So this is a really great development stack. I was going to show you guys quickly an app that I developed with this stack. This is called Tofa. My client had a project, a sort of a free project called Token of Appreciation, where she sells these tokens of appreciation that you can give out to people to express your gratitude to them. And then you can track the token. You can go to this website, enter the token on a website, and then track it on a map. So I redid this whole website for her. I did it pretty quickly. The prototype took me about 2 weeks or less. All of this uses Angular, React, Node. It's mobile friendly. All the data gets saved in a database. So just to show you guys quickly, it can scale down. It scales down to like a mobile size like that. So it'll fit on your mobile phone as well as on your tablet or desktop. We can enter a token ID here. So if I'm interested in the token with the number 1, 2, 3, 4, it says, hey, this token has been registered once already. We can track it. We can see where it's been. So it's registered there in Lake Worth, Florida. We can also explore all the tokens on this site, if it will load. So this is using a mapping technology called Leaflet.js, which allows us to basically cluster all of the points that we're mapping together and see them like this. And then we can zoom in more here. Keeps sort of drilling down. Go to 1, then I can track the token. So this is just to show you guys that you can create these very interactive applications with lots of functionality very quickly. The technology stack that we're using, it's a great stack. I really believe in it. So. Okay, so we had our intro to the console. Anyone, I know you mentioned the console, Jackie. Do you guys pretty much familiar with most of the console commands we learned? Like, say, if I ask you how do you create a file, it's touch. If I ask you how do you go into a directory, it's cd. So you guys are pretty familiar with the basics already, and that's great. That's basically what we want to check here. So we covered some HTML. Like, how do you guys feel about HTML? Are you a little bit clearer on it than when you came in last week? Good. Any questions on HTML you'd like to bring up now? Yes, sir.
Do you have any recommendations on how to go into it when you have the structure either in your head of what you want it to be or the instructions in front of you on how it's supposed to be? Because for the homework assignment, it recommends starting with HTML before going to CSS.
Yeah.
So like if there's a
if there's like a mental model you can use. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, there is. When I start out with my sites, I usually figure out how to break it up into tags. Like if I see a headline, I say, okay, that's going to be like a headline tag. If there's a section of the page, you say, hey, that's going to be a section tag. So you go through it like that and pretty much figure out which tags work for which pieces of content and break it up like that. And then you use this CSS to style it. Because CSS is designed in such a way that it's more or less agnostic to what the HTML is. So you can take basically any HTML structure and give it any type of presentation, make it look any type of way you want to with CSS. So the most important thing when you're thinking about coding your HTML is how to make it semantic. Do you guys kind of know what semantic means? Anyone would like to share the definition of semantic? Sam?
What you kind of describes what is going on.
Yeah, that's a great definition. Semantic basically means that something has linguistic value, that it explains what it is. So when you write semantic markup, you write it in such a way that your tags themselves describe what's going on. So if you have a heading, you use a heading tag. If there's a list, you use a UL or a OL with LI tags. That sort of thing. And you will get more used to it as you go, how to write the markup for things. But does that kind of answer your question a little bit?
that helps a little bit, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I can get with you after class. Yes, Simon.
For the homework, there was like just a line that we were supposed to put in. It wasn't a BR. It was I forget what it was. Maybe I'll come back to it.
Yeah, so if there's a line that you're supposed to put in, that could be a good semantic way to use a BR. I recommend not using.
Yeah, it wasn't a BR.
It was a border?
HR. Yeah.
Oh, okay, a horizontal rule. Yeah, so you can.
Suggest to do it that?
You can do it that way. That may be what the homework was looking for. Another way to do it is just use a border for one of your divs. It depends. I mean, the thing you have to think about is HR. A screen reader will read in HR in a certain way. So if you want it to get, it all depends how you want it to work for the visually impaired people on different mobile devices. Somebody might be looking at it on their BlackBerry still, which has no CSS, so you have to think about all of those kinds of things. But yeah, for the purposes of this assignment, I would use an HR. Thanks, Sam. All right, we also learned Git. Do we remember our fun exercise with SpongeBob and Kobe Bryant and what's his name from Kiss? So we all learned don't hire somebody from the band Kiss to your website, first of all, right? And we all kind of understand how this stuff works now. Git helps us to collaborate together. Do we have any questions on Git? Is everybody feeling pretty confident with Git now? Yes.
I know how it works, I know how it is, but I couldn't upload my files to Ash.
Okay, so you haven't been able to push it all to Git yet, or? Okay,
I
so.
have to do it with, on the website. It says add files, and I just added a folder.
Okay, I will come help you with that, and we'll get you straightened out. Anyone else having any problems like that? Has anyone else not been able to push to GitHub? Yes, Sam.
Every file and directory you create, you have to add it the same way?
Yeah, you have to add, or you can do multiples at a time. You can use git add all to add everything, or you can use git add star asterisk, and that will also add everything. So you don't actually have to do it individually.
If you add a directory, will that add everything in the directory?
No. If you type if you type git add the name of the directory and then /star, that will add everything in the directory. Yeah.
When you go ahead and do the git commit, and then you add your message and then the file name, does that have to be one file at a time, or can it be multiple files?
It can be multiple files separated with a space. You can also use star as a sort of a wildcard that will add pretty much every file in that directory.
How do we work with the branches and the...
Okay, that's a great question. Was anyone else kind of not clear on branches and what they do?
I've been playing with this the whole week and I love it, but I don't still understand how does the concept of branch work with that thing.
Okay, yeah, so I'll explain that now. That's a great question. I want everyone to hear this. So branches are for when you're working on something and you want it to be separate. Like say I have my website, it's already working, everything on it is perfect, but I want to add a new button, right? So I don't want to start adding code to the master branch because then something might get messed up and then I won't have a working website anymore. So what you can do instead is to add a new branch. A branch can hold the feature, so it's like you're branching off from the main thing. So your master branch is the main code. That's what holds your working website. Now, when you're building something new in that, sometimes you want that to be separate from the main code so that it doesn't have a negative effect on the other code. Does that make sense? So that's why you would use a branch.
You can keep adding changes to the branch without touching the master.
Yeah, you can keep adding changes to the branch without touching the master. And when you're ready, when it's all working, so say I have my working website. I make a new branch, I make this new button, I get the button all working with the website in the new branch, then I will merge it back into the master branch with a pull. Now the way I forget who asked this question, but it was an excellent question. They asked, how do we contribute to open source projects, right? Who decides what code can go into a project? Can I just go to the Linux kernel project and add whatever I want to? And the answer is no. What you do is you clone the website, you add a new branch, and then you submit what is called a pull request for that branch to be merged back into the master. And then somebody at that organization that has the right credentials will make the decision whether that code should get merged into master or not. Does that make sense to everyone?
In our case, when we make the
branch,
the push,
yeah,
that automatically goes to the master.
Yes, because right now we're all working on the master branch. You can create a new branch. I think we're going to get a chance to play with that in some of the lessons that we have coming up. So it's good to try it out for your own vindication as you're doing, and I think we'll cover that sort of in more detail. But do you understand kind of like high level how that works? And I can go over with you individually all the commands and stuff to make that work. Any other questions on Git?
So what's the difference between that process that you just explained when adding and
the pull request? Yeah.
And the fork exercise that we're passing?
Okay, so fork is for when you want to take some code and use it for your own project. Like say you might have a software that you develop that I might want to use, but I want to change it for my own purposes. So that's when you do fork, when you want to take something and make it your own, make changes to it that basically make it totally different from what it originally was. That's when you do a fork. Clone and pull request is for when you're making changes to something to make it a better product, but not something different. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions on Git? Okay. So we talked about CSS syntax. Does this look familiar to everybody? I really hope it does. You have your selector like an A tag. It could be the name of the element. It could also be the name of the class, which starts with a dot, right? Or it could be an ID, which starts with a hash sign. Great. So then we have these curly brackets here that enclose our styles. The styles each end in a semicolon, and they have the property and the value. Who can name another CSS property? Anyone?
Order.
Order. Yes, good one. Sam.
Position.
Position. Good. Can I get like 2 more? Sorry, what?
Font? No.
Fonts. Family is one of them, or you could do font face or font size. So there's 2 different, this is a good distinction to make with CSS. Some of them you'll notice are text dash, and some of them you'll notice are font dash. And that's kind of confusing when you start. Can anyone think of why they would have done it that way? Anyone want to take a guess?
Say the question.
So some of the CSS properties will start with font dash, like font dash face, font dash family. Other ones that have to do with styling text will start with text dash, like text dash decoration. So anyone know why that is?
So it's easier when you look for it? Or?
Yes, to make it so it's easier when you look for it, the ones that have to do specifically with a font will start with font dash, like font face, font family, font weight, all start with font dash. The size of the text, like you could have 2 different fonts with the same size text, right? So that's text dash size, or it's actually, and color is font color, or the color of the text, so it's just called color. So that doesn't have font dash or text dash. So it just takes a little bit of learning, getting used to what all these properties are. Web Inspector and your developer tools in Chrome will be a big help with that. Also, you can go and look things up. And then, of course, we have the value. In this case, it's yellow. Does anyone remember the other way we talked about for encoding color values in CSS? Hexadecimal. Great. You guys are on top of it. Cool. Any other questions on CSS? Yeah.
For me, I found it easier to use internal CSS whenever into my file. Why are we not supposed to do that?
Okay, internal CSS. So do you mean like color equals?
Yeah, within the HTML file.
Okay, that's a good question. Well, the answer is CSS was designed to give us a separation between presentation and information. And the reason why you would want that is that, one, you would want to have things styled several different ways for mobile, for desktop, for tablet, as well as screen reading devices for the visually impaired, robots that crawl your page to make them search engine accessible. So when you have that separation, it makes everything a lot cleaner. And for the projects that you guys are doing now, they're pretty small, so it doesn't really matter so much. But as you get into making bigger, more complicated websites, it really starts to get in your way a lot. So that's why we're teaching you guys to do it kind of right from the get-go. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions on CSS? Okay. Okay, so the concept of flow, I know some of you guys struggled with this. I definitely struggled with it when I was first starting out as a web developer. It isn't easy. So we talked about how to make columns, which is only every website in the world ever uses columns, right? Pretty much. So to make columns, we make things float right or float left. Usually you just use float left. If you want a column to the left and to the right, you can use float left for both, and float over one after another, right? So we talked about this. If you want to sometimes have images that have text wrapping around them, you can use float for that too, and it will just have the text wrap around the image. Yeah, so it forces the adjacent elements to float around it. How did you guys feel about working with floats? Did you feel like you kind of got the hang of it? Was it hard at first? Takes some getting used to, right? Okay. Any questions on that? No one? No one had a question on floats. Okay, does anyone want to share with the class maybe a problem that you had using floats or something that you figured out?
Well, mine in particular, the homework assignment, currently the problem I'm having is I'm trying to get the 2 different boxes of divs float right next to each other. At the moment I have them side by side, but I'm trying to get the smaller one further up.
Okay.
So that the top borders line up.
Right.
And I have no idea how to get that.
And it's getting pushed down, so it goes down like halfway?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, so that's probably because something from the other div is pushing it down. I can look at it with you individually, and when you see it in front of you, it makes more sense. Okay. But yeah, float is a hard concept to wrap your minds around, and you will run into all these weird kind of quirky nuances with it, like he's talking about. So just keep going with it, keep playing with it, keep using Web Inspector to try to figure things out, and you guys will all start to understand this stuff and start to get. Okay, the box model. I hope you guys all remember this, right? We have content, then padding, then border, then margin on the outside, and now here we have what's called offset, which is what the left-right properties you use with your absolute positioning. Okay, so any questions on that? You guys clear on that so far?
Yeah, when it comes to, I think someone else also had this issue. So I know that text align, when you make it center, like you'll make it like in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if it's in the middle, but like vertically it's not on the top?
Okay, that's a good question. CSS does not really provide a good way to make things vertically centered. There used to be, we used to use tables. I was talking to you about this, Matthew, because you were asking about emails.
Yeah.
So with tables, you have a property called vertical align, and you can set that to center. They got rid of it in newer versions of CSS for anything except for tables. And the reason why they did that was because it causes all kinds of weird problems when creating CSS. So you can use JavaScript if you want something vertically centered, but typically it's just not really done in websites very often because there isn't a built-in way. Also, another trick that I'll share with you guys, if you want something centered, if you want to have text centered, you can use align, text align, center, as you said. But if you want to have a div or a block level element centered, there's a trick for that. And it's margin 0 auto. So 0 sets the top and bottom margins to 0, and then auto tells the left and right margins to be automatic. So if you ever want to have a div or a block level element that's centered, use margin 0 auto. We'll probably cover that more in our further lessons, and also Bootstrap is going to help with that a lot when we get into Bootstrap. Any other questions on the box model before I go on? Yes?
How do we center the text vertically?
Okay, so that's what I just...
I have a really hard time trying to get the meanings center vertically. Same. So I did it with the same padding on top and on the bottom.
Right.
But I don't know if there's a better way of doing it.
Yeah, so you should have the same padding on the top and on the bottom. I can look at that with you specifically. Mappy's question was pretty similar. There's no property in CSS for vertical centering or vertical alignment. And the reason for that is that everything is supposed to flow down the page. They talked about this when going over their versions of CSS. Basically, in Geneva, where the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, is the standards body that makes all of the standards for the World Wide Web. HTML, CSS, XML, not JavaScript. That's the European Computer Manufacturers Association that deals with that. But basically, they have representatives come from Microsoft, from Google, from Firefox, from all of the browser makers, and they all talk about what would work best to put in the standards for HTML and CSS, and they decided to leave that one out. So I can get with you individually and see exactly what's going on with you. And that's going to be probably the best way for some of you guys to learn this stuff is by error, right? To try things and see what happens, and then you'll get some things wrong, and then you figure out what you're doing wrong, and you'll keep going. Okay, so does that kind of answer your question? And I can take a look at it with you individually later. But this all kind of makes sense to you guys, right? You have a box model, you have your content, padding, border, margin. You guys good with that? Like at a 5 with how this works? Okay, awesome. Okay, so CSS positioning. Was everyone kind of able to wrap their heads around the absolute positioning stuff? Okay, you are confused. You're getting there. Okay, so what was challenging for you about it?
Dividing the boxes and just moving the boxes up and down and left and right. So for some reason, I look at this as the X and Y.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is. That's a great way to look at it.
But I just have to just keep practicing.
Yeah, you have to keep practicing.
It's like learning a new language. I mean, just gotta practice it and practice it and practice it.
Yeah. So the good news is absolute positioning won't be used that often in most CSS layouts. Most of it uses floats instead, and also Bootstrap will help you guys with this. But you can make something positioned relative to the top, right, relative to the bottom, relative to the left, relative to the right. You can also make it relative to an enclosing div that is positioned set to relative. And then this absolute div will be relative to that. Okay, so let's press on here. So here are some great resources. We'll pass out the slides to you guys, but if you want to write these down as well, I would encourage it. W3 Schools is a great one. CSS Tricks is another great one. Stack Overflow, of course, always a great resource if you have questions. Mozilla Developer Network is a pretty good one as well. Yeah, sure.
So I feel like there was a lot of times in CSS where I would try to do something and it wouldn't work, or then I would go back and modify something later, and I'd notice in inspect element that something was crossed out, like it wasn't affecting anything.
Okay,
Is
good
there a way to
question.
figure out how much is like not working of our CSS?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're going to look at Web Inspector more in this lesson, but to answer your question, the reason something gets crossed out is because another style is overriding. So CSS cascades, right? It's cascading style sheets. So you'll have properties, and then sometimes you'll override the properties with something else. So that crossed out property is there to show you that something else is overriding it. And usually above that, it'll show you the property that is overriding it. Does that kind of make sense? And that's actually good that it does that, because that means you're writing more concise CSS. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. Any questions on resources? Yes.
The validation service. Validation.
Yes, that's a great question.
Does that tell you if website will load, or is it just like for syntax purposes? Okay,
so the question is, what does the W3C markup validator do? Has anyone else had a chance to see the W3C markup validator? So the reason that's there is it checks to see if your HTML is valid. We talked a little bit about DTDs and how they prescribe the syntax and structure of your HTML document. So the W3C markup validator checks it against whatever DTD you give it. You can choose to give it XHTML1 or HTML4 or HTML5. And it checks to see if all of your structure and syntax is correct. Like if you have a div tag inside an A tag, let's say it won't allow you to do that because A's are supposed to be in divs, not the other way around. So it'll tell you, hey, that's wrong. So it's a good way to learn if you want to see if you're making mistakes. It used to be when I was first starting out as a front-end developer that we had to validate all of our HTML with the W3C validator. Now that's not really the case because browsers are stronger. There's less cross-browser compatibility issues, so it becomes kind of less of an issue. But I would encourage all of you guys to go and try the markup validator.
So is it possible for it to pass validation but not actually load?
But not load the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, anything's possible. It isn't checking your CSS. It isn't checking to make sure the site looks right. It isn't even checking to see if your link tags and A tags work. It's just checking to see if the structure and syntax in the document is correct. Any other questions on resources? Have you guys been using any of these resources? Has everyone been to at least one of these sites? Okay, great.
YouTube is kind of missing too.
Yeah, YouTube is missing. I'm not a big fan of YouTube because you have to watch through the whole video and stuff. I think, Jorge, it was you that were saying, hey, there's kids on here, they're 12, and I just can't listen to the way they talk because they're 12. You know, and that's the way
They have that terrible vocal fry.
Yeah, it's kind of just unpleasant. I like to skip it, and I can usually just kind of scan and read down to the information that I want, so I find that easier. But definitely, I mean, it's definitely a matter of personal choice, what works for you, and that's what this is all about, figuring out what works for you. Okay, so is anybody feeling this way still? Somewhere between lost, confused, unsure, unclear, disoriented? Yeah, like a few of you. Okay, but we'll get there. Yeah, okay, awesome. We will get there, I promise. Okay, so does anyone remember what the difference is between section and div, and why in some cases we use div, in some cases section? I know you do, Samuel. So, okay, so we can talk about this because some people are still somewhat unclear. Samuel knows. But basically, div is a block level tag. And it used to be with HTML4 and older versions of HTML, div was the only block level container tag available, and everything would be in a div. With HTML5, they have the standards body, the W3C, and they all get together there in Geneva, people from Microsoft that are on the IE team, people from Google that are on the Chrome team. Bless you. All the different browser makers, and they all kind of get there and argue about what they want in the browser. And so they decided it would be good to have some more semantic section tags to make it easier, one, to read the HTML when new developers come in and read it for your own sake, for you to come in and read it. It also makes it better for search engine optimization and to make it machine readable. Okay, makes sense. So cases where you would want to use a section tag are like at the top level. So for your columns that you're making, that would be a good use of section. Anytime you have something that could actually be considered a section of the page. Usually div tags will go inside of sections if you need additional additions. And same thing goes for navigation. Navigation is a semantic block level tag, so you'd use that for your nav. You'd use footer for your footer. You don't have to. If you use footer for your header and header for your footer, it will do the exact same thing. It's just there to make your code a little bit more clear. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, awesome. So you can see here we have content wraps the whole content. This would be like a section tag that would wrap our whole content. Each of these entries would probably be a div. This sidebar could be a section. And then we have our header and footer. So these containers are called divs. So using an HTML5 layout, instead of having something like this, where each of them are a div, we could use the semantic tags where we have our header tag for our header, our nav tag for our nav, section tags for the one thing on top. You have article tags for each of your articles. You have an aside tag for your aside and a footer tag for your footer. So this just makes your coding cleaner. It makes it better for search engine optimization, but you don't have to do it. It won't change the look and feel or the layout of your site. And if you guys have any questions about that, you can always go to W3C Schools. So any questions about this, how you would use the section tags, the header and footer tags? No, so the header should be like your name, whatever you say in the header of your site. Navigation should be for the navigation. So good question. Yes, I think we will want to see that in your work that you are using these things correctly. So yeah, sorry if I was unclear about that. Yeah, navs go in the nav. The header tags are for your header, like your top level headline. I don't think you have to use all of these, but we'd at least like to see that you use one or two of them. Yes?
Sometimes I see that article, I relate that to the post.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it's for. Good job, Snap. That's exactly what it's for. It's for articles. Like if you have a blog page that lists several article teasers with the first paragraph or something, have you guys all seen sites like that? So that's basically what the article tag is for, to list multiple articles. And it's there. It does help sometimes with search engine optimization. It doesn't help a great deal. It won't really get you to the top of Google, but that's what it's there for. If each of your articles are marked up with an article tag, search engines will have an easier time telling what that is, that it's actually an article that they're looking at. Does that make sense to everyone? Great. Okay, so follow your homework instructions. If you have any questions, reach out to us. You guys should be clear on this by now, I think, right? Everyone out of 5 with sections versus divs? Okay, awesome. And if you have any more questions, reach out to me, reach out to the TAs. So we talked a little bit in our last class about classes versus IDs. Classes you can use as many times on the page as you can use once. They give this example here. This barcode is the same for every iPhone sold, right? So that's the static ID, or that's kind of like a class. I'm sorry, let me explain this again. These numbers are different for every product sold. It's to track the products. The serial number will be the same for every iPhone sold. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? So IDs you can use only once per page. Classes you can use as many times as you want to, and you can use as many classes as you want per element. All right, so now we're going to get started looking at developer tools in Chrome. I know a lot of you have had a chance to play with this, but now we'll take a kind of a deep dive into it and answer hopefully some of your questions. So I'm going to look up a site that I try to look at every morning, the NewYorkTimes.com. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes the news is just so depressing. I leave it alone and say, no, I'm going to check Facebook. Okay, so we can see this is the way they have the site laid out. So what if I want to change something in here? What if I decide something doesn't look good? We can go to our developer tools. Sorry, it's being slow. Yeah, it's being really slow for some reason. I don't know why. So has everyone figured out that when you click on a specific element and click inspect, it will take you to that element in developer tools? Okay, awesome. And I'm actually just going to go to an easier site than this to load. I think the New York Times uses lazy loading, and that's why it's kind of slow. Does anybody else have a site they look at a lot that we could use as an example? Reddit. Okay, cool. Let's use Reddit. Okay, so here's Reddit. Here's the layout. So has everyone seen this? You click on inspect. Pulls up developer tools. Let me make this. Okay. Okay, so it's taking me to this top div. You can see when I mouse over it, this gets highlighted. So I can see very clearly it's this div. So what if we want to change the appearance of it a little bit? Let's say we want to give it a border. Anyone remember the CSS property to do that? Border. Awesome. So you'll see what it lists here is every CSS property that is associated with this element. So I can just type here border. And then does everyone remember that border is a shorthand tag? It actually takes three things. What are the three properties border can have? It can have the color, right? Anyone remember the others? Sam?
Style.
Size. So yeah, there's the width, and then there's the style. It's either dashed, solid, or dotted, usually, or other ones. And it can even have a background. So you can give your borders their own background image if you want to, which you designers will probably like. Okay, so let's say, what color do we want to make this border? Green. Okay, we will just make it green. It's being somewhat slow here. I do apologize. Because we're webcasting, it makes the computer a little slower, I think. Let's see. Okay, border. Okay, usually it's much faster than this, but as you can see, we can make the border green. We're going to give it a width of, what should the width be? 10 pixels. Okay, and we want it solid, dashed, dotted, solid. Okay, so now we can see we have a 10 pixel solid green border, right? So just like that, I've changed the look of a page. What else do we want to do? Maybe we want to make the text bigger. How do we do that? Font size. And how big should we make it? 20 pixels. Cool. What else do we want to do? Okay, so font color in CSS, does anyone remember that? It's just color. Who said that? Okay, awesome. Awesome job. Yep, it's just color. So it already has a color here. It's 888. So I could either go down here and modify this color, or we can just try writing our own color. What color do we want it to be? Blue. Okay, so Lauren, do you see how that just got crossed out? So does that kind of answer your question about how that works? Okay, so you can see it's very easy to modify the style of a page. What if we, instead of just modifying the style though, we want to also modify the content? Did everyone know they could do that? So this text submitted, maybe we want to change that. We could change it to, what's another word for submitted? Anyone? Entered. Okay. Did I spell that right? Okay. So anyway, we see that when I click off of here, it changes it to that, right? So any questions with this so far? Do you guys all kind of understand how this pretty much works? Okay. Let's take a look now, because we have a little bit of extra time, I think, at some of these other tabs and what they do. So you can see you have performance. This is a good one for you guys to look at. It'll tell you how your website is performing. It'll give it a test and let you know what you can change. To do that, I'm not going to go through that now. You also have your sources tab. This is an important one. This shows you all of the code that's on the site. You can search it by hitting Control Option F. It's different for you guys on your computers, but I can search it if I just want to look for HTML. It's going to search through all of the code on Reddit that puts together this Reddit page and look for anything that matches the string HTML. And as you see, here are all of the results. I can click on one, and it will open it in the text editor. So some of these other elements is the one that you guys will be working with most. That shows you the HTML and CSS. Console tab is for JavaScript. We haven't gotten into talking about JavaScript yet, but if you guys all just want to go to, do you guys all have your developer tools open?
Isn't console also if you're the checks and balances to make sure your CSS is linked properly to your HTML?
No, that's a good question. That's the network tab, and I'll get into talking about that one in a second. So console is for JavaScript. It's a JavaScript console. So if each of you guys want to try going to the console tab and just type 1+1, just so you can see how it gives you output. Are you guys with me so far? In your developer tools, there should be a tab called console. And if you just type 1+1 into that, you should get 2.
That was sources. Sorry, got that one confused.
No, it's going to be network. Sources is different. That's the one that I just showed you guys. That shows you. Are you on fire? Yeah. So sources will show you all of the source code. That looks like elements. I don't think.
So that's what I use to make sure that my CSS, unless I'm wrong. This is when I'm.
Yeah. So you can do it that way, but it's better to do it through network, and I'll show you why in a second.
I think what she's referring to is that in the console you get file on file to resource on file.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that will show you that in the console, that if you're trying to request something, like if you have a link tag that's requesting a style sheet and it's not found, it can show you that in the console depending on how you have your settings. It used to.
For images, unless there's a better way to use that, just to make sure that the reference link to the image.
Well, the network tab also does that, and that's the way that I normally do it, and I think that's the way that a number of developers normally do it, and I think I can show you why. So when you have the network tab open and you refresh the page, it'll show you every single file that is being pulled down to load the page. JavaScript files, CSS files, image files, media files, also JSON and data files for Ajax. So, and then you can filter it. So you can filter just CSS, and then it will show me just all of the CSS files on Reddit. And they will show up in red if anything's missing. Sometimes you also will get those console errors too, but this is really the best way, I think, to do what you're talking about. But there are like several different ways to skin a cat in this case. But usually this is the way I'll look at it if I want to just see if all of the links on my site are working or all of the images working. Is it trying to pull down anything that it shouldn't? You can just go to Network tab. It'll show you all of the files that are linked. You can use the filters to look at like CSS specifically or images specifically. But also, to get back to console, console is mostly used for JavaScript. So what you can do is type JavaScript commands into the console. Like, did everyone try typing 1 + 1 into the console and you get 2? 2 + 2 is 4. Okay. So that's what console does, and we'll get into doing more complicated stuff as well. Network, as I just showed you guys, it shows you every file that's used on the site. You can filter it by JavaScript, by images. It'll show you fonts, even documents. So this is a great resource when you want to figure out if things on your site aren't loading, if there are any broken links on the site. This is a great thing to check. So far. Any other questions so far? But the main thing that all of you will be using now is the Elements tab and the HTML and CSS features inside of there. Okay? So now all of you are going to get a chance to try playing with the Element Inspector on your own. You'll get to pick a site that you like and try to modify it. Try to do what we did here in the in-class exercise, change some of the colors, change some of the fonts, also change some of the contents. You will get 10 minutes to do that.
On some of the fonts, I get a yellow. Does that mean my computer doesn't have it loaded?
A yellow.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's yellow versus the blue.
Okay, so yeah, I'll get with that with you individually. But any questions on this before we get started? Everyone clear pretty much on what we're doing? Okay, awesome. All right, so we'll have 10 minutes to work on this. So yellow. Okay, so Sublime Text is doing that to show you that it's something that it recognizes. So if you put like an extra A or mess up the on Arial or Helvetica, you'll see that it changes back. Oh no, maybe it won't. Maybe that's because it's supposed to go in quotes, I think. So yeah, that calls for them to go in quotes. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. That's just the way that it colors them, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, I just thought it maybe because I don't. It's that font's not loaded or whatever.
No,
it's not Serif did. And what was the other font? I loaded another font and it did.
Those are all pretty basic fonts that you should have on your system. So I don't know why I would do that.
Okay.
Sans serif is like a generic name. It isn't an actual font. It's just any font that does not have serifs on it, which are the little squiggly things. Yeah, I don't know why. So try typing another F on end of serif.
Yeah.
So it's just things that it doesn't recognize. It recognizes sans serif as a piece of code, whereas Arial.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Do you remember when we talked about prefix? Okay, so here's what you're going to want. You show that. Yeah, no, to the picture. So, and if you could, let's actually get back out and help you with this after. I want everyone to do the exercise. So, did you hear what the exercise is?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, but try it. Okay, why don't we try different sites? So you can get you'll have more time to do more. I want to help you stay on track. I will.
So just select something here, change the CSS, so we make it smaller. Okay. So. And you can select something on the page.
So, if you want to change it.
That's gonna take you to HTML for that and all the CSS. So there's no way you can change it over.
It would actually be over here. This is your CSS over here, and this is your HTML. So just what we're saying now, so if you wanted to remove, for instance, you just try to type it over there.
No, it's fine. So click it.
Oh,
Say. Okay.
oh.
So you see that it's in that. So what you want to do is play around with it, modify some stuff.
So, do I put somebody's thing?
Yay!
No, you can say actually maybe easier.
Every now and then, more time like finding
Yeah. So let me show you something.
So this is all your HTML on the page. This is all your CSS. So you can use that little click, you can click on something and look at the HTML.
So let's say, I don't know what something is want to change font size. Okay, so you have font size. And then hit tab.
Oh, I changed it. It was.
Yeah.
Where is that being? Here.
So does that make sense though? If there's something that isn't already there, you can just add it on top.
Okay.
How's it going now? All right, awesome. Now this. You got everything? I get it. Color.
Okay, so you don't have any CSS for.
Well, I'm looking at the website of this Google operator thing, and it looks like there's all the different, like this whole menu bar, it's each different piece.
So all these things.
Is that like wrong, or is it not like wrong, but is that like not smart thing to do?
Well, that's what you.
Yeah, like, so I noticed that, for instance, the top. This is this part right here.
Yeah, so
and then this is just.
Right, don't make websites do that way. They use tables. Tables is the older way to lay out stuff. This is usually from websites like there's a program from Adobe called Image Editor. That's just a Photoshop document and it chops them up into tables so that everything fits nicely in tables and that way you don't have to go. It's kind of an older way of doing things. I would guess that this website is probably 5 years old. Yeah, so they did things kind of the old fashioned way.
And then I looked at my shots books, and I think my boss used WordPress to make it. It was just divs within
Yeah,
divs within
WordPress is
divs.
very happy. Cool, looks like you're doing well. Do you have another question?
No.
Oh. Oh,
So size isn't.
Scroll out. And then you're gonna want to do it on this side. So sometimes it will be a different layout.
what this does is it shows you computed styles, they call it computed styles. Because remember how we talked about styles that override each other sometimes? It will override some of the properties. So what this shows you is the computed styles. It shows you all of the styles that are currently getting applied. And then it shows you the ones that are getting applied. And I'll actually go over that.
We can do one.
You want to
make it small? So we have to look for something that's making that picture that big.
And then see that
Just targeting or?
No. Okay, you want to use this right here to select. Scroll down.
Okay, wait, so what happened?
Activate an output on.
Okay, so border, there it is, because it already knows if that's it. Just type in that's the width. So just get there, you're solid.
So with your labor, it's minus 960.
Take away with.
Minor, but it's still nice.
No, so click the actual value.
So that does it. You type the border with the color and then the style.
So let's see what I do.
So those you can then each individually, you can just say border color, border width, border style, but it's just easier to
There. See how that.
And then it
Okay, now what do you want to do? So these are the actual attributes we get. Start from the very top. Start from the very top. We have the position. We have the font family, font size. Scroll down. We have some color there. So what actually want to find? Oh, the actual word. So that's going to be
Oh, yeah.
And then And then you're gonna want to set. You're gonna want to set the position
You do the easy one. The easy one.
It's floating left. That's not gonna get the mean time that was it. Will go all the way up to that
yeah, that's the next one. Some of them already did.
I was just moving, cutting and pasting, moving back and forth.
Hey, Jonathan, can you come help me out with this? Can you figure out how do I get to like a web page in this computer?
You might be full screen.
I'm just full screen.
Yeah, so now we're gonna do the modify their own website.
Yeah. Are we out of time for this? This was 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 and then it's another 10, I believe, for their own website.
Okay, got it.
So
Yeah, I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, guys, so let's begin to bring that to a close. Everyone, please check it out your attention up here. Okay, so how did that go for everyone? You guys all feel like you got the hang of modifying a website? Yes. Okay, awesome. I saw a few of you had some questions, which I want to answer for the group so that nobody else has these same problems. First of all, some of you asked the question, hey, I want to modify something on here. I want to modify the color, but I can't see anything on here that says color, right? So I think a few of you had that question. If you want to modify a CSS property and you don't see it here, what do you do? So the answer to that is you can add it. I don't know how many of you, show of hands, how many of you had that problem that you didn't see the style you were looking for? So a few of you. So just to be clear, you can add it. You can add it to any one of the style rules here, but it's usually best if we add it at the top to the element style. And so to do that, you just double click in here, go in here, double click, and then you just type, border or color or whatever you want. Another thing I saw some people doing, and this I think answers your question, Lauren. A few of you wondered what are these styles over here, right? On the right. So what these are the computed styles. Over here on the left, it shows you every style rule that's in the CSS together, and then the ones that get overridden get crossed out. Over here on the right, it shows you just the styles that are actually in use now. So that kind of answers your question a little bit better, Lauren, about how do I see what's actually getting used. It shows you this over here on the right under computed styles. It also shows you a nice picture of the box model for whatever element that you're on, which comes in handy sometimes. It'll show you, hey, here's the margin, here's the padding, here's the border, etc. It'll tell you how wide the div is. Okay, so any other questions you guys have? Is that pretty easy for all of you? Okay, 1 to 5, where are you guys at? All right, a lot of you are at 5. All right, very good. So now we're going to take another quick break for you guys to modify your own websites. Now that you've gotten to modify another website, I know some of you already did that, but try opening up your homework sites now and try to modify that. We're going to take about 5 minutes for this. Change the colors, change the text, change the backgrounds, change the borders.
Okay, so for that,
Can't see.
So this is next to this. Okay.
I was just curious, if
That's a great question. I'm gonna answer that in a way class so you guys know, but you can start answering and copy it and paste it back.
So for this little thing that you have down here, can go all day.
Like say you change that here, you got some more copy the CSS.
You have your bio right, but then all the space is taken up by margins. So
This is when you're
may or may not be right, and then you're kind of pushing it all this space and the space
right, yeah, just use this. Yeah, sure.
Take off
I don't know that's right. That's okay.
Okay, so
It's just so you needed more padding. So try to start that on the.
So what's going on here is, I take this off. Main bio is taking up that whole thing. Even though you added the size, it's making up you guys better. So you're not using it with margins. Correct. So it is that width, but then it's like, it's still using the rest. You're taking
Padding adds to
stuff from the line. And you're taking
So
the
So usually
you don't need to have a line, you can already do the
no, you should just, yeah, take that out.
What is
And then you try to set it.
Oh, the background?
Because the problem is.
So if you look at this, goes up to that tells me a lot of stuff, how they did stuff. Oh, how they set these?
Yeah, we never actually ended up.
Oh, has a, that's great, so that's your border. You can set the border. Yeah, of course. So, yeah, try, for example, in bio image, try adding a border. We want to apply it to all four sides.
Okay, how is everyone doing with that? You want another 2 minutes or so to work on it, or you guys feel like you're in a pretty good place? What do you think? Who wants another 2 minutes? Okay, looks like one of you, two of you. Yeah, we'll take another 2 minutes.
Oh, we're taking another, okay, because I wasn't sure if you're saying, go back. Yeah. She was just asking about how you
Yeah, border, and then section, color, there's the. Yeah, so you already have.
Yeah, they go on the same.
They go in the same thing, it's shorthand, right? So you have what is this?
That's part of the,
Okay, so black, and then, no comment, no, it's solid, and then. Okay, everyone. How did that go for you guys? Any questions on Border? Great job, guys. We're going to get some more opportunities to play around with Web Inspector. Web Inspector is really going to be your best friend when designing websites, especially when learning CSS and stuff. Everyone start using it now for your homework if you haven't already. I had one good question that I wanted to share. Somebody asked, what happens when we want to transfer this back to our website? Say you're working on your homework and you figured out how to fix it in Web Inspector. Now how do you get it to actually save on the website? There's no way to actually save code on Web Inspector. If you have all of the code and everything working really well on your site in Web Inspector and you hit refresh, what do you guys think happens? It's gone. You lose it. You get to start all over again. You don't want that to happen. So make sure you copy paste all of your code as you're going and paste it back into your CSS file. Okay? Sound good? Okay, so we're going to take a quick 15-minute break. And when we come back, we'll have more chance to look at reset.css.
So you want the space separating this way?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. So, okay, so have you not had it working at all yet? So LS. So did you try doing git clone?
It says it's already there. Yeah.
Okay. So what is it called? Your project?
It's
first day stuff, right?
First day stuff. Yeah.
First day stuff.
Yeah, you want the whole thing.
So now I'm going to type something called git status. That should show you the status. Nothing added to use git add to track. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to add all of the files to this repository. This should only happen once. Why is it showing me? Okay, so you have your first data.html, so we have to add it. So I'll let you do it. Type git add, and then space, and first data.html, and you can use tab to autocomplete tab. And that autocomplete, hit enter. Okay. And now type git. Okay, so now just do git push. Oh, I'm sorry, git commit. So git commit and then -m for message. -m and then type a message. Oh, my first one. Something so you'll know what it is.
Yeah. So
it can have spaces. Yeah, you can type space if you want to, and then you're going to type the name of the file. So first space, first day.html. And use tab to. Okay, enter. Okay, good. Now do git push.
Inside
table the current branch master. So can you show me this on GitHub? Did you set up the repository on GitHub?
Yeah. These are good.
So right now they're right next to each other.
I have it in desktop CHW
Inside of Particle.
And then I had to do it from here. I create a new file, and that's how I upload it. Because I wanted to send something.
Yeah. Okay, so that's okay for your homework for this week, I guess. But here's what we're going to want to do now. We're going to get rid of that folder you have on your computer, and we're going to clone it again. So I'll just explain to you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to copy this. This is the path to your repo. And now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back one directory. I'm going to delete the first day stuff.
Okay, go back to your page and inspect it.
Okay, so now I deleted that. Now I'm going to clone this again.
So you did it right. Good job, you did it.
Doing something.
So I have
all of
So you're telling me it can only be this. Okay, so figure out this good. Let's like have all. I know we're.
Oh, okay. So
we should cover everything. Okay, so it's good.
Sometimes the best way, if you have everything saved in GitHub, is you can just delete the directory you have locally and then check it out again, and that will fix it. So this one,
For us to be able to see it, they decided on the example.
oh, okay. Now I need to say again, git clone.
So that's so they did something.
Okay, you should be good now. Now try just opening it up in your text editor and make a change to it, just so you can see. So that's the same folder. So let's just try and go to index and change the heading. So you have heading 1. Okay, perfect. All right, now here's what you're going to do. Go back to your staff, and you're going to commit. So to commit, so remember what your command is?
Git commit?
Yeah, git commit, and then -m in your message, and then the name of the file, which is index. Yeah, -m, and then in quotes, you type change the headline. And then you type space and the name of that file. So it's index. No, okay, I'm sorry. So yeah, let's just delete that and then type CD and then your what are we calling that? HW one. So yeah, so it's capital H and then hit tab. Okay, good. Enter. And now type what I just told you to type: git commit -m. Sorry about that.
Keep it adding, keep it margin.
Yeah. And then the name of the file index. One each tab is completed for you.
Oh, cool. So you're
And then email, hit enter. Let's try this. I'm gonna do push.
So that's a combination of two. Basically, what it's telling me there is that right doesn't have
Oh, I know why. It's just add, right? So we have to first do git add and then index other channel. Index.html. Okay, enter. Now use up arrow to go back through the command type till you see git commit. Okay, now hit enter. Still not. Okay.
Right, so you probably are
sometimes you run into problems like this, and but once you get it going, I think it's because
the way I like to see it now.
Why is it outside? Oh, okay. So okay, so you have to go to that file where
But everything that I said was yeah, I mean, right there is
yeah, I get it all. On the
oh, okay. So why is there a okay, so here's part of the problem is that we have this directory inside of your so let's which one do you want to keep? The one that's on the outside or the one that's on the
This one doesn't have anything, and this one has everything.
Okay, so this one has everything. So let's.
Oh my god.
And you can heat it up for like.
Oh
yeah, I use that. No, I use your pies. Oh my god, they're all your pies.
So the one we have here.
We're trying just to fight with it.
So this index.html doesn't have anything in it, you're saying?
No, yes, there's one that says Hulu Wi-Fi has index and CSS.
Okay, so we want that to be in this folder. That folder shouldn't be there because you have the same folder inside of that folder, right? So we should just have one. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna move the index out of this folder. So first I can delete this one that's on the outside, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna just remove that. And then I'm gonna move your index file out. To here. Okay, so then there's a CSS file in there too. Okay. Yeah, so then style.css, which is
No, but I have a good idea for the start.
okay.
Because I think it's confusing, I'm trying to get to the point like that exactly.
Sorry if I'm going a little fast. This one. Straighten out, and you should be good to go after this.
Those shoes are the different ones are higher than last.
I know, those are really high.
That's my issue. But I didn't like it.
I didn't think
Thank you.
Alright guys, you guys need anything, you guys call me, slap me, you guys will find me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Drive safe.
Drive safe, thank you.
Drive
You know,
on.
or just drive.
No big deal.
Not a big deal, nothing. I have no life.
No
You
traffic
can just
either.
listen to 5 podcasts.
Right, exactly. This is
Find some comedy specials.
Huh?
Find some comedy specials.
That, I'm gonna start out, I seriously need it, because especially when you're stuck in traffic, I'm like, I need something to calm me down.
Gabriel, you guys get some Spotify, do it.
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
Who? He's on
Gabriel, you
Spotify?
guys get. Yes, he's got his Aloha Fluffy and Hot and Fluffy on there.
Oh, I saw
Oh,
that.
oh, that, I'm just send now.
Yes.
Right, like, go, and we
No, 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 no.
No, comedian.
Maybe
Oh, there you go. I'm gonna do that right now. That was
HTML.
Yeah, it's fine for like half an hour, but when you're driving
And
it,
now, did I show you if you ever
And
want
now
to
it's
change something?
Just the same song over and over.
Yeah, you're gonna have to actually.
like, that's a
You
great
have to open this
I'm
again.
gonna listen to that right now.
enjoy.
Thank you, bye guys.
So where was that? Is it on your desktop? So now you can try this. Try changing the title or something. Yeah, try or whatever you want. Change something. So it has your new heading. Try changing that homework. Make it one.
No, it's fine.
Say it, and then go back to your shell.
But after we went over the
Bash shell, yes.
yeah.
And now you're gonna first commit. So you type git commit, the message changed headline -m for message, and then the message. Okay, and then the name of the file. Okay. So we deleted those. That's fine. So now.
Yeah, no, I don't make it.
Remember to save. I can do that for that. So you say. Try to just type git push and see if it shows you those changes. No, enter this. Yeah, just git push.
It's when you're
Okay.
you ever yeah, well, basically what happens. That's why you have your body produces insulin to digest it. Pancreas isn't good at judging like how much you'll need. It just creates a whole bunch of it, and then you burn through all your sugar.
Oh, I know why. You have this one on your desktop, so you have two different versions of them. So I'm going to take all this different versions. The one that we're working from, remember how we talked about, well, you may not remember, but we talked about tilde as your home directory. So when I type pwd here, it shows me where I am in the file path. So you're at C:, you know how C:, and then this is your drive. So you're at C:, users Lucas HW wireframe. The one that we were looking at was in C:, users Lucas desktop HW wireframe. So we're editing the wrong version. So we need to go to here, and then open file. And then we're going to open the folder that's directly. So from now on, always work from this directory. Not on the desktop. I mean, because that's the folder you were in. So you're in the wrong folder in your bash and the wrong folder in your desktop. You can use either one, but just make sure you have the right path. So yeah, so you want to change that to heading. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I can get with you after, but it should be good from there. Try and see. I think it'll be good now. Okay, guys. How was your break, everyone? Good? See a few of you are eating chips. Some of you have your dinners. Cool. So now we're going to look at reset.css. Who remembers what reset.css is for? It gets rid of all of the styles you have in play. It sets everything back to a neutral kind of style, right? It gets rid of all the browser defaults. So we talked last week about loading multiple CSS files. So this is incredibly powerful. Some things they want to go over. The order of loading does matter. That's very important. So what's in style 3 will override what's in style 2, which will in turn override what's in style 1. Right? Make sense to everyone? But feel free to use all of the CSS files you want. Just remember that they'll override each other in order. So let's take a look then. Yeah, I know that looks kind of funny. Well, yeah, that is why it's slow, because I'm recording, not because it's doing that. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to show you guys your homework just yet. So if I have a regular CSS file like this, you can see I can add one or two more. Let me go to another example, sorry. Okay, so we have our positioning.css. If I want to add reset.css, I can just do so up here like this. And then one important item of note is there are several different versions of reset.css that use slightly different things. So normally when you want to use reset.css, if you don't already have a copy of it, I'll normally just go to Google and look up reset.css. The main one is from Eric Myers. For all of you guys, we talked about resources for learning HTML and CSS. This is a great one, meyerweb.com. Everyone, please write that down. Or just remember it. So here's our reset.css. So we're going to add this. And then paste this, save it. So we're saving as reset.css. Okay. Sorry, bear with me here for just 1 sec. Everyone will be. Yes. Ah. Sorry, just trying to figure out how to get this to open my browser here. I'm trying to download the file. No, I'm trying to get it to open in my browser. This is, yeah. Okay, sorry, bear with me here. I got it, John. That's cool. Okay, activity, yes. CSS position, activity, solved. Sorry, I had no idea that would be so hard. But we can see that this is now working in our browser. If I take out reset.css, if I take out reset.css, it will lose the styling that we just gave it with reset.css here. So we should see, hopefully, some difference in our file positioning. Save. Okay, so we see some minor differences. There's not that many. I don't know if any of you guys can see it when I take it out and save it. You can see that it's putting in more line spacing. It's putting in more padding. The styling is almost about the same, but not quite. And this difference will be a lot more pronounced when you look at your files in different browsers, because the default line spacing in Firefox is not the same as it is in Chrome. It's not the same as it is in Safari. How many of you tried to look at your sites you made in different browsers? Okay, 1 or 2 of you. Yes, and you. Yeah, so this is something I would recommend very highly. It'll get you used to all of the different differences between all of the browsers. Okay, so now you guys are going to get a chance to play with reset.css. How many of you have already added reset to your homework? Okay, good. A lot of you are. So now I'd like the rest of you to try that. We're going to take about 10 minutes. So try adding reset.css. Yes. Oh, okay. Internet Explorer is one of the toughest browsers to use, but we can look at that with you individually. So everybody, if you haven't already yet, add reset.css to your HTML file. Everyone clear on how to do that?
Add before the style CSS?
Yeah, you're going to want to add it before. That'll be one of the first things, and that way it will override everything, and then you will use the CSS that you're writing to override reset with your own styles. So that way it'll work the same way between browsers. The browser defaults won't get you into trouble. Does that make sense to everyone? Because sometimes you have browser defaults, so you're writing your styles, but some of the styles you're seeing won't be the styles that you've written. They'll be the browser default styles. So you don't want to use any browser default styles because that will get you in trouble with cross-browser compatibility. So reset.css should be the first file. Everyone clear on that? So you're going to go, if you don't already have a copy of reset.css, download it from meyerweb.com. Make a new file called reset.css and link your HTML file to that. We're going to take 10 minutes to do that, and we'll come around if you guys have any questions. Yes?
I was thinking, is there a way we can already have it
Yeah, that's a great question. There isn't really HTML. That's something that would be on the server side. So with Node.js, you definitely can. So the way it's going to work on the HTML Node.js can do that. So when you get to Node.js, we'll start talking about it. I have the one I think. No, HTML alone doesn't do that. You can go with something called grains, but that's a very factor for style and stuff.
That was part of what I found was getting.
Yeah, for the CSS. You're going to want CSS to be able to.
Yeah, so. Well, I don't even get that, but I don't know.
I think you can do one section. You can be
You would have to leave the police, so that would be hard,
No, you wouldn't need a float.
so you're gonna do that as a
Yes, I was playing.
The margins to move it. No, that's it.
A little bit better, maybe put more padding.
Yeah. So right now,
yeah. And then, yes, because it's what we said. So, like we said, so you want me on your.
Yeah.
And, so if you put reset then what it's going to override for but it looks like that because you're relying on the browser default. Before it was bigger because the browser default.
Now you can open
But you have it. So now you reset. Yeah, we do that as a div, or it could be an article, those are articles, right? Yeah, I mean, you could use them as articles, we want you to use at least one of those semantic tags, like heading, article, footer. You don't have to technically have to use articles, and then you can fix it even if you want to, but it doesn't really matter. Footer is on the bottom. Yeah, well, so that doesn't feel so. Oh, okay. What was that you were telling me? Oh, that was the
default. You organize with. So the
yeah.
So when you go to D4 and add a fifth, so I need to go back to the look for D4 and add a width.
Yeah, that's gonna be fine. Yeah, and it's supposed to be a 940 width, right?
Yeah.
For the whole body is supposed to be 940. Okay, looks good off the bat. Okay. How'd that go for everyone? Were you guys able to reset your thing? Everyone seeing what reset's doing? Are you able to see how it's resetting the browser defaults? Did you see that? Yeah? Okay, cool. Was everyone able to add your own text? Or add your own styles to the text after you reset the defaults? Okay. Any questions on that? Yes, Sam.
Would you recommend having a reset on every single site we make from now on?
Yes, I would. Absolutely. You run into all kinds of crazy problems if you don't have reset. Some people say, hey, this thing isn't working in Safari, or this thing isn't working on Internet Explorer, and you can just mitigate all of that if you use reset in the very beginning. Yeah.
The reset will work in every website, or we're gonna have to edit the reset in the future and make it work in the website we work on.
Will reset. So what reset does is it sets everything back sort of to 0. It sets all the margins to 0. It sets all the padding to 0. It sets all the text to a very plain 12-point text, right? So it does the same thing on every website. It'll set everything back to very plain defaults instead of the browser defaults, which are a little bit more complicated. Then you write all of your code on top of that. So I think the question you're asking is, say you have like a heading, and you know you always want your heading to be like 16 points. Right? Will reset do that for you on every site? You have to do that alone. What reset does is it resets all of the defaults back to something very plain that will be the same across all browsers. Make sense?
Yeah, but so you would, so where would you edit that information on your style CSS or on the reset?
No, if you reset just resets everything back to be very plain. So it'll be the same plain thing across browsers, so that way you don't get in trouble with the browser defaults. Then you write your own CSS, that goes in your style.css or whatever file you want, and that's how you make things kind of interesting in your own kind of style. Okay? Makes sense? Yes.
That reset is included in our file.
I don't think it is. You have to use, even if you're using Bootstrap, and we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves talking about Bootstrap, but yes, you still have to use reset even with Bootstrap. Okay. Yeah, and we'll come back to that. Did reset cause any problems for anybody? Did anyone notice their site was a little messed up after adding reset? Yeah. Okay, and good. That's supposed to happen, and that's going to help you because it gets rid of the cross-browser compatibility issues. Okay, so we're going to keep going. So you guys, at this point, all of you should have a pretty good looking web page. It might not be perfect yet, but we'll get more time to work on it. So the next thing we're going to be doing for the rest of class is look at how do we get our website up on the web, right? Right now, your websites are only on your computer. So if you want to show it to anybody that can't look at your computer, you're not going to be able to do that, right? So the next step we're going to do is get our websites up on the web. You guys are all using Chrome, I hope, for the purposes of this class, right? Then we can go back to Firefox. Does everybody understand about cross-browser compatibility, why it can cause problems, why websites look slightly different in different browsers? So we can talk about that more a little later. I'd like to get through this exercise we're going to do now of putting our code onto GitHub. So who has seen a GitHub Pages site that ends in github.io? Anyone? As you start coding more, you'll start seeing these sites a lot more often. But basically all it is GitHub gives people a way to put up small websites to document their code, but you can use it for any kind of site that you want to. So I'm going to put on a short video for us here that will explain about GitHub Pages and exactly what they do. Okay.
Some things that might not. So how do you tell them about all the great things you're building? Billboards, direct mail. These days, you build a website, and there are lots of options out there, but so many of these options can be excessive or overwhelming, even for someone who develops software. GitHub Pages lets you turn GitHub repositories into elegant websites to showcase your portfolio, your projects, their documentation, or anything else you want to share with the world. There are no databases to set up and no servers to configure. In many cases, you don't even have to know HTML. Everything just works. If you're already using GitHub, it's the most direct path to create websites for you and your projects. So how does it work? Well, GitHub serves all of your project sites from a personal URL tied to your username or organization. GitHub looks for web content for your projects on a special branch. For sites tied to an existing repository, this branch is separate from your code. But you can also create a site for yourself or your organization by creating a repository with your GitHub Pages URL as its name and adding web content to its master branch. You can even drag and drop your files straight into your browser to upload them. Now, if you want to build something a bit more ambitious, like a blog or structured documentation, GitHub Pages gives you a streamlined publishing experience with the help of Jekyll. Jekyll is an open source tool that transforms plain text files into websites.
So if you guys wanted to look at Jekyll, you can. That's outside of the scope of what we're doing here, but it will give you a good idea of how templating engines sort of work. So feel free to look at that if you want to, but it's not required for this class.
Variables, templates, and drafts, which give you more control over the format and presentation of your site. Now, no matter which path you choose, GitHub Pages lets you treat your website's content with the same level of care as the source code in all of your projects. Because your website's files are part of a GitHub repository, you can maintain them using the same family of tools and workflows you already use on GitHub. You can use the GitHub flow to manage changes to your website. You can even write tests and have GitHub report the status back to you before merging those changes in. When you're ready to publish changes, just merge them in. GitHub automatically builds and deploys your site for you. This frees you up to focus on the content of your site instead of worrying about how you'll get it from your computer to everyone else's browser. Try out GitHub Pages with one of your projects today. Navigate to the Settings tab of your project and use the automatic page generator to create your first site. GitHub will populate your page with some basic content that you can customize with Markdown. If your project already has a README file, you can import its content here too. When you're finished editing, choose one of the pre-built themes and publish your site. If you need to make changes to this page, you can always rerun the automatic page generator or edit the files directly on GitHub. For now, if you browse to your site's URL, you can see it's up and running. With a few clicks, you can have something beautiful online, but this is only a fraction of what you can do. Visit pages.github.com to learn more about all the possibilities. GitHub is the place where you can build great things. GitHub Pages gives you a way to share those great things with everyone.
Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Okay, so now we're going to get a chance to do it on our own, but I'm just going to demo it for you guys quickly before we do. So, okay, so the first thing that we're going to do in order to do this, and can everybody please go in your browsers, you're going to go to pages.github.io. Or pages.github.com, I'm sorry. Your sites will go on github.io, but this is on pages.github.com. Okay, so is everyone there? So let me show you how this is going to work. You'll each go to your individual GitHubs. And you'll create a new repository that ends in yourname.github.io. So if you look, there are very simple instructions here. It asks you what client are you using, a terminal. So you go to github.com, the website. You're going to create a new repository that's your username.github.io. You only get one GitHub Pages page per GitHub account, right? So let's all together go to our GitHub Pages. I'm going to go to mine. And I'm going to create a new repository here that's, in fact, why don't you guys just watch me and then we can do it after. So my GitHub username is Meek Machine. I'm going to make a new repository called github.io. I don't need to bother with a profile for now. It's going to be public. And I'm going to create this repository. Okay. Sorry? I think it's going to be, well, let's try it. Let's go back and do it again. So what happened was I was in the wrong organization. I'm added to the Coding Bootcamp organization. So I'm going to do this from my account instead. Okay, same thing. Create a new repo. meekmachine.github.io. It's going to be public. No license, no git ignore file, creating. Okay, so now we just check out this repository locally by doing git clone, and then we go and we copy the path to our new repository. Everyone with me so far? Awesome. Git clone, the path to our new repository. I need to add a space. Now it's going to clone. So it's warning me that I cloned an empty repository. Now, if I go to the pages, it gives me instructions here to create a new index.html file that already has hello world. So I'm just going to follow their instructions. I'm going to go to my terminal and type echo hello world. And then the greater than pipes it into. So in Bash, you have ways of putting more than one command together and piping in the output from one command into the next command. So echo just repeats whatever you just said. So what it's doing is it's repeating echo hello world into creating a new HTML page, which we do with, I think there's, okay, so you just type in the file name. Very good. So here, I did that. Now I'm just going to add it. Git add index.html. Oh, yeah, sorry. So cd meek machine. Do this. Git add index.html. And then what do I do? Once I add, I commit. So git commit dash m added index file. Okay, and now what do? We push. Just going to ask me for my username and password. Okay, and now when I go to meekmachine.github.io, you'll see I have my nice hello world page. Now, let's say I want to change something. What if I want to make that a proper H1 tag? I can just open this file. Not going to let me do it from here. But you guys get the idea of how that works, right? Sorry, I can't demo the text for right now. It's because I'm on Chrome OS. Any questions on that and how that works before we get started? Should be, yeah.
We get one website per repository or per account?
I believe it's per account. I believe GitHub has it set up per account because it does it by your username. It may be possible to make them. I don't have that much experience with these GitHub pages, so I believe that it is per. Well, no, I'm sorry. You do get to make a docs folder and set that up, so it is per repository. But it does it by default for your username. You get to make one page for your username as well, which will be good for your visibility as a programmer professional when you're online. So now you guys are all going to create a GitHub page and put your website that you've made for your homework in it. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to get started on that now. We'll be coming around to help you. You have 15 minutes.
So create it. Are you going to do and you're going to make a new Oh, you're talking about the name. So it's going to be your username. Great.
Yeah, sure.
So I cloned that new file, right? Close to my, but I'm working from the one page, basic portfolio, so I have to put when I'm done this folder.
Yeah, so you're gonna copy everything from there to here. But for now, for this exercise, I just want you guys to make the GitHub page, and then we'll go over how to transfer all your stuff. So everyone just make the basic GitHub page that says Hello World for now, and when we're done with that, then we'll go over as a class cover how to move all our stuff into that. Yeah, sure.
Perfect. So now you're gonna do a clone.
Oh, no, you have to first go ahead and so do a parallel twice and back. And then you just get add, get add, and that's the next sheet.
Yeah, we clone it in your, once you're to the folder, you can go to
How to index the
yes, well, once you're in the folder, and create new HTML. No. I'll get you. There's, yeah.
Okay, now just do this. Okay, now see the work, go to that page, username is that.
Yes, it's your.
Okay. Did you create it with the right name?
So the name of the software has to be Oh, is that where you download it? No, no.
Can we go to that? So we're going to the browser where you have pages that get
That's what happened. Yeah, so do you use GPS, just like that, really take
Okay, how do I?
Let me Google it. Sorry, I don't have Oh, it did work? It took a minute. Okay.
Space again. No, we're about to get add.
So every
No, it's waiting in line to get to your repository. And
yeah, get add if you haven't already had it.
No. Yes. So we're
from now on.
Oh, yeah, you have to do that.
What is going to be with the website? You don't work.
Put that in there, because a lot of times.
All right, cool. Now, go to your browser, go to Chrome,
The one, the new one.
and go to HTTPS.
So we're gonna use this Yes, it should be. It should be good. These one, right?
Yeah.
Let's.
So, yeah.
Let's
So sometimes.
That's what you put up on the browser.
But I think that's gonna be
Then push them back. See that if your hard drive crashes or something, like lose everything.
Okay, because I had been going to dash again for the homework assignment, so I guess I haven't been taking.
Yeah, so you lost those changes, but that's okay, just more.
Oh, so you get the document, you get rid of the document.
I know you do it right.
All right, show of hands who got that working so far. Okay, most of you did. Looks like a few of you didn't. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, did the comment, that's just it. One. Yeah, so now you follow the instructions to as you go to there, you pick up pages. Yeah, so just you'll copy all of that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll come help you with that in a minute. I just want to. Class. Looks like most of you guys finished that, right? So, and now most of you guys are trying to figure out how to put your pages that you made into that, I guess. Is that where you are? Anybody? Where are you guys? Who was able to get their hello world on time? Okay. A few of you guys, so we'll come around and help the people that haven't. Yes, sir.
Well, I noticed there's some difficulty because I have.
You know what I mean?
That's the
Oh, okay. So you should, for the purposes of this class, please use the Git repository. Or if you really want a graphical user interface, use Sourcetree instead. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, that's an app I don't class use. So that's like a cookie that's better than user map. But for the purpose of this class, please use Git Bash. So we're all on one same page. Okay, yeah, I think I will come help you guys out individually. But so guys, now I want to talk about how do we get our projects onto GitHub, right? Most of us have created our GitHub pages page. So the next step, and we'll come around and help you guys out individually if you're not here yet. I just want to keep us all on track. You're going to copy, paste all of your files into that directory. And then you'll have your site up on your GitHub pages. And you can choose which files to keep basically on your GitHub pages. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Yeah.
When you copy and paste our files, what file?
So you guys all made your portfolio site, right? Or that's all underway, at least with most of you. The homework assignment we gave you guys, the portfolio site. So the next step is we're going to put that up online so that people can see it. Yeah. He's laughing. He's like, wow, people have to see that. Yeah, you can go to the command line. If you want to copy, the command for copy and the command line is CP. So I'm going to demo this for you guys so you can understand how this works. Okay, can everyone focus up here for a minute? Guys, focus please up here for 1 minute. So say I have this index file in here that I want to copy. So I'm going to CD.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to plug in. Yes. Do I have a charger? I may not even have a charger. So we're just going to go ahead and demo this. We're almost done, and we'll come around and help you guys out individually. Okay, so I'm going to CD into my directory. Wait, so what is the question? Are we unclear which homework assignment to put up on the GitHub pages site?
So yeah, I think there were two different homework assignments. One was the recommended, which was making the portfolio website.
Uh-huh.
The other one was the easier one that took less time, that was making a very, very basic, nondescript website.
You only choose one.
You can choose one or the other, I guess. Is that right, Jonathan?
Oh, right. Well, that's that homework is going to be your proposal. Right. Some of them have a portfolio site. Others have like a basic, wireframe.
Wireframe site. So if you have the portfolio site, put that one up. If you have the wireframe site, put that one up for now.
Is your charger USB-C?
No.
I'm just asking because I don't know which one's that. No. Okay, just checking because some of them will work.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so here's how you're going to do it. From your command lines, are you guys all ready? I'm just going to tell you how to do it. The command is CP. So are you in your GitHub pages directories? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to type CP. Yeah, in your Git Bash terminal. So type CP, that's the command for copy. Then you're going to type the path to the other repo that you have. So that's going to start with a // So CP space //. And then whatever the name for your repository that has your portfolio or your wireframe project if you don't have your portfolio. So you type that directory, hit tab to autocomplete. You there, Matthew? Okay. So the CP space // the name of your other project directory that has your project that we're putting on GitHub. Then after that, you're going to put a /* that tells it to copy everything in that directory. Then you're going to put another space. Then you're going to put // that tells it to copy it to this directory. And you guys can do this from the Explorer, Windows Explorer, Mac Finder, whatever you want. If that
one
makes it
issue
easier
that I
for
see
you.
with that is not everyone has it like in one folder. and like the folders, so the dots.
Yeah, well, you guys are gonna have to know where on your computer you keep things in your repository and kind of get good at like finding things within the directory structure. In your computer, it's not a one-size-all description. But are you guys all pretty clear on how that works? You're gonna copy paste the files you have,